Hello, hello. How's it going, everybody? We are going to do some more WebSockets today. We'll see how long we go. I don't know. Don't get old, y'all. I slept funny probably a couple weeks ago now. And then I think in trying to adjust to be comfortable from having slept odd and things being achy, I pinched a nerve or something. I don't know, man. So if I'm grimacing or sitting funny, that's why. Don't get old. I don't know. We'll see how long I go. I don't want to exacerbate it too much, but we'll make it work. So what we're actually getting to today though, we're going to continue working through the WebSockets. We got a good chunk of the way there, and something like trying to connect. We need to get the variables actually injected and use them, and then actually make the connection. That plus we need to, theoretically, we could pull in a client, because there is some existing WebSocket clients for OBS, which is the streaming software that I use. But I think we're only going to want it for like one or two things. I'm kind of tempted to just go raw WebSockets. We can use the types, or the the types and the codes or whatever from the client, the WebSocket JS client, or the OBS WebSocket dash JS client or whatever. And then we can kind of go from there, I think. We might end up just wanting to swap to the client at some point, but I think for this like one or two use cases, we'll try it this way and see how it goes. So let's go ahead and go on over. I should have, if I got everything. Whoop. Oh, wait. Swap my keyboard. There we go. Good. We still have this going. So this is actually what we're working on. The to-do app is more than a to-do app, because it's saving timestamps, and we also wanted to connect to OBS to get like information or context from around, from the the stream itself. So like, as we do to-do items, we can then, so like, hello, and when I check them off, we're actually saving a timestamp with it. And from OBS, we can also get like the current running, like the stream has been on for X number of minutes. And we can use all that to then eventually create timestamps that I can add down below, which I should do sometime after the stream is done, and it'll do the chapter markers for us. So just a bunch of like niceties that are like on top of what you might consider a normal to-do app. So we're using a bunch of the Tauri APIs to do this, because we're like saving to the file system, and using like local the Tauri plugin store to store the context of like where these files are, because we're storing the file as an actual like .text, or I don't know, whatever we called it, and we're then pulling when you open that app back up, we pull that context back up. But people can move their files around, so we kind of need to have some ability to have like an existing context, but then also fail in a way that recovers easily. So there's some interesting bits here that are over the top of what a normal to-do app are, and seem to work well with what we have set up within Tauri. So what we're going to actually do today, let's pull this back up. We're going to we need to set up the environment variables first. So let's see if we can get like some sort of connection. So I did create you can see in the .env.local, which I have the docs pulled up. Vite, well, we'll probably end up changing it, but right now we're having Vite inject the environment variables to set the password and the port. Those are going to need to be user configurable at some point, but that was an easy way for me to get it in there in a way that was like, I wouldn't share it on stream effectively. So we'll wire up the connection. We'll say WebSocket connection info. Then we're gonna check out the connect codes for OBS WebSockets, and I think it's somewhat standard, but when you do a connection via WebSockets, there's like a little bit of back and forth. In the same vein of if you've ever done OAuth, you will, from the client, make a connection to the server, and the server pings to the other server, and then they go back and forth a little bit. So there's like that handshake process. There's something similar in OBS, and I think we can just pull that right out of the WebSocket client. So I guess from there, we will end up list out the options for what we want to implement. And I think there's a couple potential bits there that we want to look at. And this is where like pulling in the client could be nice if the type file from the client works. We might be able to just get away with using that and having that be the thing that sort of like directs or defines or helps define the payload. And if not, we might want to just pull in this client directly and then use it, because anytime we add a new code or OBS updates, for instance, we're going to there's potential for breaking changes there. So we'll need to somehow make sure to keep those codes and WebSocket connection information and the payloads themselves in line with like where OBS is. And I don't really want to do that. But if we only have like one payload, it might not be a big deal. But we'll probably look at what there is and what we might want to use, and that might dictate how we proceed. All right, so I guess from there, once we do that, we'll probably look to implement one of the calls. We'll probably go from there. I guess the other thing, this might be like a stretch goal, but update star effects to use this as a resource. We'll come back to that if we get to the point where we're going to try to dig into that. We'll dig into that. We'll go through what a resource is a little bit more deeply, but we might not get to that. And then I guess leading up to that, we will need to look at Vite cache and allowing us to update node modules. Okay. That will end up going before if we end up doing it. So let's wire up Vite, or let's wire up the environment variables from Vite to our WebSocket connection. So I'll go like this and a little bit of this. I'm going to close some of this and we'll save this. Let's just get a clean slate here, and sure, whatever, just restart. I don't like to see those little notifications. All right, so we have this use WebSocket, and it is we copied this from the affection contrib, and the affection is a wrapper around, or ends up being effectively a wrapper around our WebSocket connection to help us manage it. So some of it is managing like the close events, and some of it is managing the actual like events themselves. And we dropped this here. I wasn't getting error messages, I think, is why we dropped it here. And we'll have to like look at the subscriptions. Let's see. I think this WebSocket implementation is also on affection version 4, in which StarFX is on version 3. So we'll have to look at that a little bit, but this is where, when we were mentioning the let's out oh, wait, I actually didn't put it in here. Oh, check out the connect codes. So here, like once the socket opens, we wait for the connection to send an open event. But in implementing this, we're also doing a password. So like we won't be able to do this directly because it's expecting a password. So that like part of that handshake process is we open the connection waits for us to then send that password. And that's the bit where we'll probably have to look at the how the OBS client is doing that. So I guess we could try it. npm run Tauri dev. We'll let that run for a minute, and then we should get, I think it's going to open up the DevTools right away too. Darth Buddha, good to see you. Intel made bank. Did they have an announcement or something that bumped their stock price? But Intel's been having a bit of a rough time lately, I feel like. Especially the, okay, here we go. Message event. That's what we were looking for. Challenge. No one knows. Interesting. Yeah, AMD has been really killing it with their CPUs lately. And Intel had a rough couple like a bunch of bugs and stuff. All right, so let's see. We've got in our WebSocket connection, we are doing, so this is more of just the wrapper. Where we actually implemented ends up being here. We're sending this. So we give it a string, and that's what's defining this. So it is waiting for, there's this challenge. So that challenge, I think, is where we're going to need to look at that code. And I guess in reality, we could probably just do something like this, at least for the moment. We're going to need to make the port dynamic. And if we look at the documentation, we should be able to do something like this. Well, that's a little annoying. Does it say anything about TypeScript and how that looks? No, it doesn't really. Oh, here we go. IntelliSense. Got it. I'm actually not going to bother hooking that up because I don't expect this to stick around for too long. or at least that's the hope, because I want to move this into a place where it's like user configurable. So I think this will work. Let's see, WebSocket port. Okay. So now we're getting the same as we were before. And what's happening is we're never getting the open event. So that's why we like copy and pasted this up here and just, give us some information, because we're getting a message, but we're never getting the open event. So it was never proceeding past this. And we weren't getting the open event because it was, it's like awaiting this completion of the challenge. And like, I think this challenge changes every time. GK4. Yeah. So it's they're like salted and dynamically update. So it'll remake a connection every time we reload. And this is the WebSocket client. So we could, in theory, pull in this client and do this. And this would allow us to do, like, it's going to have the password and everything in here. So we could do this. And this is going, if we would use a client like this, it has a connect method, which takes some information. And that's interesting. Event subscriptions. Okay. And you can set a specific version, password. Yeah. And then we basically just do a call, which I'm presuming that their TypeScript is helping us out with here. I don't really care about batch requests right now, but yeah, and then there's the listener. So we'll get events. So this isn't actually like helping us out too much. It still seems to be rather reliant on TypeScript or IntelliSense to help us out. In which case, like, I think we could, in theory, basically just grab this, which would give us WebSocket opcodes. And they're auto-generating this already anyways. This is the bits that, yeah, so like, we might need to like grab or soft fork some of these pieces so as to get this connection thing going. Yeah, and like it's got a bunch of this bits in here, which honestly I would probably prefer to do in my affection code. So here's the batch, here's the call. Here's a create connection. So there's an op. Internal event promise. Okay. On open, on message, on error. So I'm guessing, let's see, connected. Okay, so it awaits the connection. Interesting. And then return hello promise. Okay. So if we look at the, where's the actual like connect? Message internally. So like this internal event thing just waits. Darth Buddha, you said you have an issue on yours where the front end was running through your startup command before the back end, so you had to develop a startup process. Like a WebSocket connection, or yeah, that that sounds like the case. So like a WebSocket connection or something. Like the connection was going out before the backend was ready to process it, and that like that's the there is, if we look at like their docs here, well, that's not where I want to look. These libraries tend to have, where's the docs for it? Oh, where was I on before? What's this? OBS WebSocket. Ah, okay. There's re-identify, which redoes the connection. I don't know if it actually will retry connections. We would have to look at the code for it. Or I suppose we can search too. Nope. WebSocket, you wanna yeah, okay. So you ask Coinbase. Yeah, there's definitely like especially like the first mount when you're doing, like when we were working with the peer-to-peer stuff too, where there's a signal server or auth or something that you want to check prior to like loading the whole front end. Because if you're authenticated, then we could in theory give you data, which would be more recent than when you have locally or persisted. So yeah, sort of the same situation where the front end loads and it's like, well, we don't actually know, we can't make this connection yet, or we need to wait for something to resolve before we can load the whole front end. So we either load it and then refresh it, or you do something like what you're doing where you have a splash screen that kind of just hides this loading state. It's like a fancy loading spinner for apps. Okay, so yeah. What are you doing, cat? Come here. Come here, goofball. Stop looking. She likes to lick my green screen. Come on. Please stop. I am connected to a cord. Hey, you. No. Hey. I don't know. I don't know why she does that. But it really annoys me. Okay, so it's emitting these events, and let's see, what's this hello data? Yeah, and that's the app code. All right. Stop. She's like walking out just outside of where I'm standing. Okay, so I think honestly, like, wire up it's working, it's trying to connect, it's just waiting for the thing. So I think we can call this one done, and we're gonna basically move on to these connect codes. I think we give it a shot. There's a bunch going on here, and most of it is like like we could do this connection stuff, and then we could just use their TypeScript file. Bamboo, come here. Come on. She's looking at me like, haha, you can't reach me. Okay. Okay. All right. All right. Come here. Ugh. Sassy kitty. All right. So they connect. It looks like this is the default port, and then they do a password. So the OBS WebSocket connection doesn't actually require a password, but you can set it. And I do, in my instance, have it set. So if we look and say password, where do they use it? In the connection, there's a this.identify. Okay, so and then they use this hello, and that's that create connection. And this is where they're doing the opcodes. So I think we're going to need to do, because we're doing this already, and we're mostly doing that. Internal event promise is setting up a listener for it. Okay. I think this connection open, though, is something that this library is doing. So if we look at this, we're getting a message event, right? I don't see anything. I want to say that this connected event is like their connection open is their event that they're firing off. So it's doing in this create a promise to listen for an event on an internal listener. So they're using like an event emitter thing too. Send message to WebSocket and identify. So I don't think we actually need we're gonna need the authentication hashing. Are you leaving us? No, you best not be going back there. Come here. Please stop. Okay, so we're gonna need the opcodes. Let's grab that, and they've got a bunch of enums, so we can basically pull this in. And now I've got hair on my nose, and it's itchy. All right. I think we can basically just grab this because it's a bunch of enums, and they're setting up like these opcodes and stuff for us. And like this is the main value from using the library. I don't need the rest of the connection stuff nearly as much as I would like this. So I guess I do maybe like a utils/obs.ts. And we go like this, and we say up at the top here that it's auto-generated. This is a soft fork from this. Okay. And then what is this? Typefast. If we comment that out, how much do they use it? this doesn't feel like anything that I would care about. So they're not using a JSON array. They're using the, so if we say type JSON object equals, I think JSON has an interface already. Like, why I don't, object and value, JSON, doesn't it have one already? Or am I thinking about another library? JSON object? Oh, coming from that, all right. JSON, okay, I guess not. I don't know. I suppose we could just install this and roll with it, but in some respects too, I don't probably need that all that much. There's just a lot here. All right. We might need to just pull it in for the moment. Cats are worse than kids, so demanding. It's funny, like when my wife was like, oh, we should get some cats, and she had one previously, which still lives at mother-in-law's house. She's like, I kind of want my cats to be social. Well, we got cats, and I mean, I think some of it is like I'm here, I work from home, so I spend a fair amount of time with them, so they are pretty social. And she's like, okay, I could actually use a little bit less social because they're kind of a lot. That one is a little bit of a princess, I think. All right, so I don't know. I really don't want to like bring in a whole nother lib, but whatever. Maybe we just do it for now. We can always pull it out. Sure. You got 4 somehow. It happened. That doesn't sound like a somehow. That seems very intentful. All right. I'm definitely I think these 2 cats are the last animals that I'm fine having. They can be a good amount of work, and yeah, I'm not over them. Like, I would never get rid of them, but also I don't have a strong interest to give myself more work. They cleaning up after him and whatnot is more than I am interested in doing these days. It's the like, there's only so many things you can maintain or like keep in front of you, like in the front of your brain, and I've hit that limit. So I'm in all ways trying to downsize to the stuff that I actually care about. And having more cats wouldn't provide any more, good feels or whatever. You got one that thinks it's a monkey and climbs up everything. Oh, that's rough. The one of ours is scratches a little bit. Both of ours have their front claws still. So we've had to do a lot of like a redirection to get them to not scratch couches, but we definitely like what our old couch, or one of the old couches, is in our basement right now. We've got like a kind of kids play area down there, and yeah, it's a little scratched up. They've gotten better though, as we've learned how to help them redirect. But anyways, so we have our connection, and this is doing so if we give it a URL, then we're creating a WebSocket connection. with whatever the protocols is. I think we looked that up last time, but I'm not quite sure. And then socket. So socket must be already a connection. So I think we could give this a, like we could in theory give this a client, and then it would start doing some of these bits for us. But also like this isn't gonna, we can't just use this directly, this implementation of use WebSocket, because of that handshake stuff. So, you know, it is what it is. If we go, oh, okay. Yeah. This is what we pulled in last time, I think. So we want to do the like identify piece, and this is going to be basically this. Yeah. And this does work for multiple. And what they're doing here is basically like, if it doesn't work, then, you know, throw an error effectively. What we can do is we can potentially bake in like a retry and that sort of stuff. So they try this whole thing, and if we have an error, it catches, and then it'll like rethrow after it disconnects. So depending on how this settles out versus this, we might get into this rethrown error. We have some of those bits in place already from our implementation, but I'm not going to worry too much about that. I just want to get something rolling that we can like test it out with this implementation. So here's for messages. That's that with resolvers we just looked at. And then this is doing, we don't need this. But we need this. So we need to do the, we're going to identify with that hello, which is also an opcode, I think. So create connection. It is doing this. So we could say, and then this ends up giving us back the hello promise. So we can say, let's say a const hello and do this. And this is going to come from there. So now we've got an opcode, which is op0. And then we take that hello and we pass it on to this.identify, which is probably also doing a call. It's just taking a little bit more information in. So we have this authentication. We do have a password, and then I'm going to do another like little soft fork on this auth piece. It is, I thought I had it open still, I guess not. Oh. Okay, let's go here. Utils, authentication hashing. And this is using crypto. Is that a lib? I don't think you really need to use that. And like, this is all, this is kind of part of it too, where it's like, we, you know, using this lib is nice because it'll save us some effort, but also like we're bringing in all this stuff that we don't really care about. Because this is doing a, let's see, SHA-256. I think this is all stuff that we can do in the browser. MDM SHA-256. Some of this does require though, and so like this is the web cryptography API, and it's only available in secure contexts. We might run into issues with this. So like in theory, we could use this. In practice, we might run into issues. So this will take text and then return a buffer. And what are we doing here? So we're taking so we're base 64. We're taking the message and the salt and we're encoding it. So const encode equals this, where SHA-256 is basically going to be like this. And we can, I'll just remove those for the moment. Oh, I didn't copy paste that very well. Okay, digest message. Is this really async? I guess so, yeah. It's slightly annoying, but export async function. I don't know, we'll call it handshake for now right now. So this will do this. This will give us a buffer. And then encode did, we're going to call it instead. With that buffer, we can then do this, which will, wait, what? Why is it doing, wait. So it's doing a hash. Oh, and then, oh, interesting. So it does SHA-256 of the message and the salt. And base 64 stringifies it, and then does that again. But with the challenge instead of the salt. Okay. So let's see. MDN base 64. I think it's B2A or ATOB. So we want to, from something, from encoded. Okay, no, this is the other way. This would be, we want to go the other direction, which would be wait, what was it? BTOA, yep. Okay, so string to encode and the binary string to encode. So I think that'll work. So if we do BTOA takes a string. And this is giving us a array buffer. I think we can just do a .toString on this. Okay, now we got a hash, and now we'll say const encoded again. Wait, digest message, this. And then we get this .toString and that. So we'll see. We'll see if this is going to be happy times, because we might run into issues. This is the other bit. Okay, well, we're still good. Authentication hashing, sure. We can rename that. Export function, import from utils. Okay, now we get salt, challenge, and password. So password is going to be in theory, we could pass that in. Do we? I guess password string there. Why doesn't it like that? Oh, come on. Yep. Got it. Got it. So password is being passed in, and then we get to figure out this authentication bit. So here we're emitting a hello, and then we, I don't know why we emit first. That feels interesting. But we'll come back to that. We got to figure out the authentication. And then I guess before I forget, we need to do one of these: import.meta.m.vite ws password. So that's why I set in my environment file as the password. So that should be coming in here now. String undefined or string. So let's go back and look at this. Base. So we do a connect, we emit, and then we do a this.identify with the identification parameters, which seem to be blank in this case. So, or like their example means that they're blank. So let's look at the identify. Authentication RPC version, and then the rest of them. Oh, and then I got it. Okay, so we've got data, and then we do data. We're not doing anything with identification parameters, so I don't think I really care about that, or really RPC version. So this is just like an object coming in. So we have in authentication, and then we're sending it as data. So we need to basically do this bit here. So we have const data equals this. And then we'll say if there's a password, then like go ahead and do that. Oh. So we are getting that back. We might want to like after we connect, we might want to like here we're waiting for open, but we might want to set up our listener at a time and say, hey, well, if once on open, I think we do something like this. We say yield star once socket message. Whoa, wrong button. I was in my head, I was in Mac mode. So I was using the shortcuts for my Mac. We got our hello, we got our data. So if there's a password, then we do this dot authentication. I mean, sure. Why don't, okay, sure. I don't know, I guess we'll say undefined, and we'll say as string or undefined. Now we need to figure out the salt, but then we end up doing the identified, which is this. So we have a hello, we have a data, we have identified. Golly, I did it again. Goodness. What am I trying to do? I'm trying to do this. There we go. So we have an op1, or an op0, I guess, and an op2. And then we send it off. So we should be able to do a socket.send. Yield star socket.send. And it does not like that. WebSocket.send takes data, and that's it. Okay, so what is the message doing? The message must be doing some sort of taking those options as input and then converting them into something that we can actually send out. So we have an op and an outgoing message. And it does a .encode message. Disconnect. Come on, go sideways. That's a lot of types. Encode message. Okay. So is this a class? Yeah, okay. Extends event. Oh boy. Okay, well, now we're getting into more and more levels of like, it's expecting these bits. And this hasn't been updated for 2 years, which probably is fine because WebSockets haven't changed too much that I know of, but also maybe they have. How does it encode message? Is it just stringifying it? Event emitter encode message. I don't really want to know how it works. I just want to know what. I'm really not keen on looking at their source code too. Encode. Great. So we have this .encode message, which I'm thinking is coming from the fact that this is a class and it's extending event emitter. So if we look at this, what version is it on? If we look at, we don't need the types anymore. So let's go here and we look at event emitter is on 5. And if we look at this one, this is also on 5. Okay, so we're on the right version. There is only one file. Do we even have a class in here? Class. So what's that extending? I don't, well, no, I want to search. Stop, go away, go away, go away. Encode. message. What the heck? Where is that coming from then? This dot encode message. It is extending event emitter. Is that a poor assumption? Okay, so it's coming from event emitter 3. Event emitter 3. We're on the right version. Okay, so it's a function. And it's doing prototypes. Okay. On, once, remove. So what does emit do? Do we use emit anywhere? Okay, there is the, okay, what? It's extending. Can we do this dot emit? And that's just a normal event. Yeah. I mean, to be fair, I've definitely done it before too, where it's like, okay, TypeScript's struggling with this, I'm not gonna bother. But also, okay. Message, this, that second. So it's sending encoded, which is an outgoing message. Okay, so const message equals, we'll say outgoing message, because then that will let us know the type. Okay, so the outgoing message is op in D, and then it does this encode, which I'm guessing is a stringify. So I'm gonna just try it and see what happens. Op and D. We'll do a JSON.stringify. Okay, do we got too many? What's going on here? JSON.stringify. Send is expecting a string, buffer like blob, array buffer view. Okay. We've got a thing to stringify. Oh. Okay. Oh, it doesn't like D. Oh, wow. I'm not defining everything, which is fine. RPC version. I don't know that I care, but RPC version equals, I don't know, what, 1? Oh, RPC version is part of data. Okay. Now that's happy. Now this is not. Type void must have a symbol iterator method that returns an iterator. And that must be, I think this is existing in Affection version 3, but we'll find out in a sec. This is a WebSocket.send. What is WebSocket.send? It doesn't actually say anywhere. I think we need to call like that because we're calling yield on it, and call is sort of triggered around calling something that isn't a generator, or an operation, and that helps affection out. So now we just need to deal with authentication. Authentication is not defined. So when we get our first message, we are doing a create connection, and then we're emitting an event. So this is, I don't think we actually need to do this because we're not sending any information. We're just doing an event to like our system. So I don't think I actually care about this hello. So we're going to do that. And what we're doing then is this to identify. And this takes password and identification parameters. I don't think matter either. And that is doing this bit. So I guess the authentication parameters is probably like that salt and stuff. So if we say here, we go, we have a message coming in, right? So we're going to yield once on message. And so rather than yielding on open, we're going to yield once on message. And then I kind of want to capture that. So this will just wait for the message, and then it doesn't really do anything with it. So I guess maybe what I do is I don't wait for open. We can put all this stuff in here, and then in our listener, I'm basically just going to, well, messages.close. Like we basically just need to pull it out of this, right? Because this is where we're getting the message. So if I do this dealio and we comment out all that, we are getting now failed WebSocket is closed before a connection is established. Oh, because we don't have the, oh, I did it again. Go up. There we go. We're not getting our message now. Console.log message. Yield star once socket open. Okay. I guess we did need that. So again, oh my goodness. I do have it on. Yep, I definitely do have it on Windows. I'm just pressing the wrong button over and over and over. Okay, so we do want to yield once on open. So do your thing and don't proceed in our code until you actually get the open event. And then we'll start getting this message. So this message will be if the message contains data, then we can work with that. So we might need to like play around with this actual message, but let's do this for now, and we'll say if if message.data do a thing. Otherwise, well, I guess always log it out. We'll say console.log message. And then we're going to do basically these bits here. And I think essentially what we could do, I don't and I don't know that I like this, and there's probably a better way to do it, but we're gonna wait for a message and then proceed, in which case we could call this. And no, that button. And we'll set then m const hello equals empty. Well, we're not going to do we're going to say handshake. I don't know that I guess it's technically a handshake. Right. I pressed the right hotkey. Sweet. No, I didn't. Having a rough time here. Okay, so I don't think we actually need hello. We might need identified. We'll look at the data. So const. We have authentication version and RPC version and an op. Okay, so if we say const d equals I guess we'll do json.parse message.data. Now this could throw, so we'll have to be a little careful of that. But this is defining authentication, and then we go here. So if password, our data that authentication, sending that back would be, I don't want to like mutate any of this. So we're going to say, I guess d dot authentication. And these are going to be innies. So we could probably do some work with that. But so if it's that, then we end up getting this message. And we should then be able to say handshake equals json.stringify m. And we'll see if it actually is cool with that. And let's, can we log that out? I guess we can log that out. It's all hashed and stuff, so it's not going to be too big of a deal here. Data. I guess what we're getting in here does include an RPC version, and it does say 1. So we could say, what is that under? That's under data, right? Yep. So we could see, we could say that is this. That should be fine. All right. So if we do that, we should then be able to do a console.log and see that. So now we're sending this back. Oh, authentication is a promise. That is probably part of our issue here. I guess I kind of have to pull this out. I guess so. So we do an open, and here we're waiting for the message. So let's pull these bits out. I'll get it right one of these times. So this is going to give us the data, right? And now if we say let d equals, we'll just do this, and then we'll say d equals data.d. That'll be fine. And then we'll say, I don't know, if there's no defined, then we'll just throw an error for right now. Record string. Okay, well, I don't think it's going to prevent us from moving forward. Okay, so we got we had an event listener. Oh, and then we need to do this. So once we've added the event listener, now we need to wait for a message. So once a message shows up, then we can proceed, which would be this code. And handshake is not defined. Did we get the M? We got the M. Yield star. I could probably switch this to not be a promise anymore, but there we go. So now we got RPC version and authentication with our D data. Why is that complaining? Oh, because it's thinking it's a string. And then we're stringifying it and calling send. There we go. Now, refresh. I can check. So I think we're sending the handshake. It might not be valid. Like our handshake that we're sending back might not actually be valid, which is potentially why it's not happy. Because we're doing .identify. And then we're calling socket.send. Let's move this up. Okay. We're not getting any errors. We don't actually need this anymore. Golly, I am just struggling with my finger control is off or something. I'm pressing all the wrong shortcuts. It might actually be the JSON.stringify. It looks like we're sending. I would expect that we see something. So like if we do this, now that we've like done a handshake, I would expect that we get any more messages here. So like we've already subscribed, and this will just log out any errors. So in theory, none of these actually matter. And then here we're calling a yield.race, and we can add another event listener there, and that probably will help us out. What is this closed? Okay. So I'm not seeing it show up here. We're not getting any OBS connections from that. We're not seeing any errors here. I guess I could do system tray alerts. That might be worthwhile. But I guess in the meantime, so I think we've got a valid hash. I'm presuming that we're correct about that. So we get the identify, and then we send off a message, and then we wait for it to come back. So we're calling this.message, which does this encoded and does a this.socket.send, and it is sending that encoded. So, I mean, this does say as an outgoing message. Okay, we're actually gonna, we'll walk that back. Let's try this. And what is that? Argument of type outgoing message is not assignable to a parameter of type string. Array buffer like blob. Okay. This is weird. Like, they're typecasting it as an outgoing message, which is what we have. Outgoing message. Type extends key of. Oh. So we got an op and a data. And then they're doing, so like this should be returning an outgoing message, but it's doing this dot encode message. So there's clearly some type of encoding somewhere. All right. WebSocket, OBS, encode message. I don't know. Let's just let's see what Google ends up turning up. Okay, this is it. Oh, that's not gonna really help us out. A lot of these are going to be like, how do you do the connection rather than like, you know, like setting up with something that already has figured out all the opcodes and everything. Connection encoding. Encode. Connection encoding. Okay. Manually opting into this. All right. 2 different builds to support different message encoding supported. Oh. So if we use JSON, manually opting into this, easier debugging, smaller bundle. Sure, that's, I mean, like, honestly, I don't really, none of these I think are going to actually matter. Like the downsides or the benefits, other than like, I want to be able to debug it easy. So what happens if we go here? If we look at this, connection steps, initial HTTP request made to OBS WebSocket server. Okay, the sec WebSocket protocol header can be used to tell WebSocket, OBS WebSocket, which kind of message encoding to use. Okay, so it's using JSON over text. So I don't need to actually specify that if we're going to use JSON over text. So, okay, so listens for hello and responds with opcode 1. So we got opcode 0. So this is the, it sends the opcode hello message. So that's what we've gotten. So once we get that message, we should be able to do a hello. So after we have received this message and saved the data, we can then say, we're going to respond back with this. Hello. Hello. This one. I did it again. One of these days I will, now if we do one of these bits, golly, I am not having a good time with this. All right, so I guess we want to do, there shouldn't be a data, right? So we should be able to just do an op and this. And op is going to be that. So if we refresh, WebSocket is already closing or close state. Okay, so we got something changed. So we called. It listens for the hello and responds with an opcode 1. So once we get a message, we then call. If we then wait for another message, what happens? Okay. So we get opcode 0. Then we call that. I don't see any actual errors or anything though. And the error that we got before was this. So like, right? No, actually, it might have came from here. I think it was coming from here. We'll do error event listener triggered. So we do a hello opcode, and then here, this is actually we're gonna save this a little bit so we remember it if we need to come back to it. So it's using JSON. What's JSON over text frames? WebSocket JSON over text frames. Okay, WebSocket frame can have one of 6 types. So we are saying it's text, which is one of the frame options of WebSocket. So WebSocket type can be these. Ping pong is basically just making sure that the connection is still live. So to after the connection is established, you ping every once in a while to make sure that the connection is still live. So it can on the server end, it can close it. I don't know what continuation is offhand. So I presume binary or text are the two that we care about as far as messages go. Yeah, over binary frames, over text frames. So maybe we do need to stringify. If we do a JSON.stringify, that seems to be cool with the actual type here. And now if we do one of these and one of these and one of these, all right, what do we got now? Okay, so we're getting a message event. It's still not coming into our WebSocket server settings. Right, localhost 4455. All right. We're getting we're not getting any errors, so we're not entering this block, we are getting it open. We are setting up an event listener. We are getting this. So this is coming from line 137. That matches up. And then we're doing this jazz. So by this point, we should have a D. So if we say console.log D, we should be able to see that. Okay. Before being assigned. That, oh, well, I guess. So we're getting, I guess we're not getting the actual message, right? Okay, so we get a D, an M, and then it starts closing already. So let's go back and look at this. Once the connection is upgraded, the WebSocket server will immediately send an opcode 0 hello message to the client. So we get an opcode 0 message to the client. So the client listens for the hello and responds with an opcode 1 identify. Identified. Is this instead of what we need to be doing? Okay. WebSocket is already in closing or close state. That's on line 169. Okay. So by the time we do that, it's already like closing, which isn't great. But we wait for the message. Okay. So we listened for hello and we respond with an opcode 1 identify containing all appropriate session parameters. Once identification is processed on the server responds to the client with an opcode 2 identified. Okay. So that's what we're looking for. We have one. We need to put in an authentication field in the message sheet. What if we look at this? So this is that challenge insult. And we need to be sending through messages sent from the OBS WebSocket server client contain these first level fields known as the base object. So we got an op and a D. So these are our data keys. That is an authentication object, which we saw. And this is specifically, okay, so we do actually need to be sending the 0. So like that isn't correct. We actually need to be doing this. So there must be some like skullduggery. Skullduggery, I like that word. There must be some skullduggery going on there that takes this string that they pass in and actually like does some work with it. Okay. Now, if we do a refresh, I don't see it showing up in the server settings. We are receiving and we should be sending. So after we send a hello, what happens? Once the connection is upgraded, it will send a hello. So we listen for the hello and then we respond with an identify. So we need to, once we get the hello message here, wait for hello with op 0. We don't actually need to send a hello back. So I'm not sure what that must be the for their event emitter. The client, or the OBS WebSocket client, it is also doing some like internal event emitting. So the intent is that you use this client, you connect using, new WebSocket client, and then you can listen for events, some of which are these like connection parameters, but we're doing it directly, so we don't really care about that. So here we're going to wait for the hello, and then we can start responding right away. Okay, still not listed. We are getting an RPC and an authentication. Here's our salt and our challenge. So we're getting this. We're setting a data parameter here, and we're giving it an RPC and an authentication. So by the time we get down to here, we're sending back this, which is an op and a D, which is what it's expecting. So it is expecting an RPC and an authentication. So if authentication is required and then identify message data does not contain an authentication string, or it's not correct, we'll get this. So we're not seeing any errors. So I'm assuming that what we're sending is correct. Now, once it's processed on the server and responds, it'll respond with an opcode 2. So let's see. We have an event listener here. Once we send it, it could be just are we like overwriting it here? We're gonna do that. I have a feeling it's closing. We're also gonna put this up here because there's also some scoping going on here too. I've commented out these bits, which means that by the time we get here, we're doing the yield race. We might actually be like falling out of this scope, but I would expect that we see those fire off. Sure, that's fine. Okay, so we're seeing the close event. You attempted to send a non-identified message while not identified. Oh, interesting. Okay. So we're waiting for op 0, which is the hello. Once we get that, we now have the authentication parameters, of which we can get the message M, and then we are sending that off. So we send off this handshake. So this would be so we're responding with opcode 1, but that's actually opcode 2. So I need to actually do identify. There we go. So send identify with op 1. Okay. Now we're getting authentication failed. That's still not great, but like progress. And where is that throwing actually? We're getting it on the close event. So it's just closing it and saying, yeah, authentication failed. Or the string is not correct. It is then just failed. So we need to do, there's an op, and we're getting back this. So we're taking the challenge and the salt, and we need to be doing this identify. So can we actually link this? Yeah, let's link some of these bits here. We'll go like this. Opcode 0. And then this is going to be identify with opcode 1. And this. Okay. So we're doing that. We're here. It is failing. We need to be sending something like this back. Event subscriptions is a bit mask of event subscriptions items to subscribe events and event categories at will. By default, all event categories are subscribed, except for events marked as high volume. So that's fine. We could probably just subscribe to everything and then not care about the high volume stuff, because I don't think we're going to actually need any of that. So that should be fine. It is also optional, it looks like. So I think we are probably safe just ignoring that, and we just need to get these bits right. So the authentication can be here, creating an authentication string. So it uses SHA-256. They'll be using super secret password as the password, sure. So concate the password with the salt. So password and salt together. So if we look at we're passing in all of those. So we need to make sure that our function here is doing that. Let's make this a little bit bigger. So we're doing the message and the salt, which should work. Message and salt. And then generated 256 binary hash with the result and base 64 coded. So this is the base 64 secret. I'm actually going to rename that and say base 64 secret. All right, so this digest message takes, we've got an encoder, and it's using window.crypto.subtle.digest SHA-256. And that will return an array buffer. So it is, I mean, we're on localhost, so I think this will work. I think we should be getting a hash. And then we take the base 64 secret and the challenge plus challenge, and then we encode it again. So BTOA takes a string and returns a string. Concatenate the base 64 secret with the challenge, and then SHA-256 result, and then base 64 encode it. Let's double check on the BTOA. I think there's like different like this might not actually be the same base 64. Yeah, like here. So if it's in a uint8 array object, we can do 2 base 64. So what is this returning? It's an array buffer. So if we say encoded, can we do encoded.to, well, uint8 array. How do we get a uint8 array? So we can generate one of those from a bin string. So what if we do this? What if we say, give us the actual uint8 array? All right. You were expecting an array like number, but you passed an array buffer. So how do we get an array buffer into a uint8 array? Dot. Okay, so there's a slice. Can I copy this? You're not gonna. I mean, this is gonna open up in my. Oh, here, copy. Great, thank you. All right. Digest. Generates a digest of the given data. Okay, so we're giving it SHA-256. So that looks fine. And then this is what we this is what we used. So it's giving us that, yep. A key hash message authentication code. A promise that fulfills with an array buffer. So an array buffer is, you can get an array buffer from existing data. Okay. Sure. Resize, slice, transfer. So we can get an an 8-byte buffer with an int 32 array. An array buffer object is used to represent a generic raw binary data buffer. Here's an array of bytes. Cannot directly manipulate it. Instead, you create typed array objects or data view objects. Okay. Yeah, all right. Okay, so those are serializable. Makes sense. So uint8 array. Okay. I don't think this is going to be particularly helpful. So I'm going to assume that array buffer is fine here. So we'll end up getting an array buffer. So somehow we need to get this into an, okay, stop. Because we don't have anything to go off of here. So let's look at the B2BT OA. That expects a string to encode, a binary string to encode. So how do we get our converting arbitrary binary, the bytes to base 64 and bytes 64 to base 64 to bytes functions can be used directly to convert between base 64 strings and uint8 arrays. Yeah, I've definitely done more with like uint8 arrays and base 64 strings, but this array buffer. Here, let's go to Google. JS array buffer to base 64. Do I trust this? Probably not. Whoa, what? It iterates through the array buffer's bytes and converts each byte to its character representation. I mean, that's basically what these are doing too. Okay, string from character code. Oh gosh. All right. Array fum. My goodness. I guess if this is what we need to do. Encode an array buffer as a base 64 string. Yeah. Okay, well, array buffer to we'll go with it, I guess. I'm not. I wonder if there's a better way to do this SHA-64 thing. But it is what it is. So here we're taking in a buffer. This gives us the bytes, and then we loop through, and then this gives us, so we should be able to do one of these. So this should be an array buffer. Array buffer. We'll put in some TypeScript to make sure that it's helping us out. Message should be of type string. This all seems to check as far as TypeScript is concerned. And then we can do, again, the same here. So encoded and encoded again goes into here. And that seems to check out. And that's true. We need to make this a promise of type string. And actually, since I have access to this, I'm going to go ahead and just make it a operation. Nope. Call. There you go. And then import this. There we go. So now I don't have to do the call on the other spot. So what we can now do, if I did it all right, is remove this bit, and do that. So this should give us valid, I guess. We get connection events now. Sweet. All right. So where are we at with stuff? We've wired up the connection and we checked this out. I guess we're kind of at the point where we can see what we actually want to do, but we're 2 hours into it already because raw WebSockets. We can see I pressed a hotkey to see what would come through, and we're getting a event type backtrack saved. So we're getting events now. So if I do, and we can see 2 here. There is a here. We got our session information. I mean, the session duration has been kicked off there, but you know. I mean, if we're just getting events, that's probably going to be fine at the moment. I don't know that I need to send anything. I guess the thing that I want to send is like, what? Maybe that's the next thing we look at. Well, I mean, it's literally the next thing on the list. What are the things that we want? For sure, I want the time codes. So let's figure that out. if I get a, because I want to be able to like send off and receive that. So this is the protocol. I suppose I could look through, because we have the types, and it's being generated off of the other thing. So if we look at WebSocket opcode, we should be able to then say this is all the stuff we could do. That's it? Okay. What are the other types? Does it split up into separate messages? Oh, OBS. Wow, that's not what I wanted. Come on, I want to make you a little bit bigger. So this is what we were looking at. I don't care about subscriptions. We'll just start getting events. Outgoing message type, event message. Filter. Okay, so this is actually what we want. OBS event types. So these would be all the options. So if we do, oh, I gotta import it. Nope. Nope. Why? Export. Why aren't you helping me out here? Dot. Why TypeScript? What are you doing? Did my reload the window? My TypeScript server might have crashed or something. No, it's saying Rust. Come on. I don't know why it's not listing it. All right, so well, these are going to be the events. We don't actually want an event. I want to be able to send. I want to be able to send something and then receive the request type. We want to it's the interface. What is TypeScript doing? Why is it not I don't know what the deal is. All right. We want to get profile list. I guess we could just search time code, output time code, get output status, whether the output is active or reconnecting, and then the time code. I guess it would just be this, right? So 6. Okay, record status, get stream status. Yep. Okay, so we want get stream status. We'll do that for right now. And that'll be under OBS response types. So OBS response types. Why are you not helping me out here? That is so weird. Only refer. Okay. Because it thinks it's a value. Boop. Okay, there we go. There we go. And I think we want this, right? Equals this. So now, it's a type, but not a namespace. So if I do one of these, there we go. Now, this should give us the stuff we care about, and we want the output time code. Like this is the bit that we care about. So what we actually need to do instead is we need to call. So we do a handshake, and then we, I guess we can say yield star once socket message, and we'll wait for another message, and then we can start doing our stuff. And then like all of this, we need to end up basically baking into something. So what I think we'll end up doing is that we are baking in this handshake bit. This is very much specific to OBS. And while you might end up doing this with other WebSocket implementations that are expecting some authentication, like how you go about it and what it's expecting and how the data is formatted might differ. So if we were looking at doing like a generic implementation of like a use WebSockets, we probably need something like this, but it's going to be like custom for every implementation. So we would have to figure out some way to like pass in an authentication object or something. And potentially give it types. Because if we could give it a type as far as like, you know, this send method, this send method that has a, you know, we're going to send something off and we're going to get a response. Having that at all TypeScript up would be very handy. So we need to send events. There's, we're getting events right now. So if we look in here, message event, we're getting a data. Negotiated, so we're getting an opt2 here. So if we do, like if I do another backtrack thing, we should see another event. This is an opt5. That's an event. So we're getting opt5s now. So what we instead need to do is a request. We're going to send a request to the client to get something. That is going to be this. So if we go back here, after we do a handshake and after we get a message, we want to then do a yield. We're definitely going to have to like do a bunch of cleanup, and that might end up just happening off stream. But I don't know, we'll call it T, I guess. So we got an opt6, which should be a, we can do the WebSocket opcode dot request. Oh, and okay, here's the request response. So we should be able to get some of that back. And this is going to be a, what if we do one of these and response? Message sent back, request response. Okay. Maybe that's not the type we care about. This does though need to be an outgoing message. So we'll do that just to help us out a little bit. So we got a T and we're going to do this. We got a JSON.stringify it again. T. We're just going to do this. I'll make it a little bit clearer for future us. So now we got a D with a request type of this. In reality, we want a request type above this. I don't know that we care about a request data. And I think this is helping us out. So we're doing an outgoing message and it's got these types like figured in. So if we give it a request type, this is helping us out. I don't think we actually, I guess the request ID could matter. So now if we refresh, we should be getting back data. There we go. So with this, we can say we are sending back and we're getting a response. So this would be const stream status. We'll say stream status response, because then const stream status equals response dot data JSON dot parse. So anytime we're going in and out, we need to do this. Well, that's unfortunate. So our response back should have a data property, right? Get stream status. So we call, and we're getting it as a message. So let's actually go into here. If we actually say, let's do a JSON dot parse message dot data. I think we're always going to get that back, so that probably is going to be safe. So here we go. We have our output timecode. So we got the information we want. I think that, what would we all want? I think we want the timecode. I potentially want some other bits, like if you had a marker. Because a marker might be a nice way to like fill in the to-do list automatically a little bit too. Because like if we're going through and doing stuff in the to-do list, if we go through a question or something, or like as we check these off, sending back and setting a marker might be nice. But honestly, like these types are pretty good. I think I'm honestly okay with just using those types in like my dev dependencies, or this soft fork method kind of works too. That'll give us all of this information. Then we just need to actually get it into a place where we can use it. And that's going to mean like finishing this up and wiring it up to our actions. So if we look back here, I think we're going to just roll with the timecode for right now, because that's the bit that I care about. And we can look at other features in the future. And honestly, like we kind of already implemented one of the calls. So we figured out what we wanted and then we implemented it. These stretch goals, Vite cache and allowing us to update Nord modules. What are we at? 2 hours? Let's see. If we get a socket error, we want to do this, and then we potentially want to dump that into messages. I guess, if we do this, so there's a couple of things going on here. If we work off of this, we're going to then be trying to wire it up to, like we're going to put this in the middleware, and essentially what we're doing is, if every time we get a message, we're putting it somewhere. So one action will fire off another action. This is only going to be on messages. It's not going to allow us to send. So we don't actually have the ability to I mean, I guess we can send it there. There's just so much misdirection isn't the right word, but there's going to be a lot of like working around things, and I don't think the type's going to help us out either. So what we end up settling on here is like this runs and it sets up the WebSocket. And we're potentially doing this put. So we might actually be getting these messages. Although we turned off the logger, so maybe not. We'll call it yielded messages. I'm just curious if we are even getting any of these right now. It doesn't look like it. So we're not even like hitting that bit. Partly because of this. So we have an event. Let's see, messages.send takes a value, message event. Okay. So in this case, we already have one of these. So I can probably just do this because I'm doing a little bit of work already. So this should then get it to show up in the yielded. Oh, spawn subscription. Oh, okay. Yield messages. Seems that we got some type issue here, but I'm not. It might be a object is not an iterable. Yeah. This bit is from affection version 3. We're using StarFX, which is technically an affection v3, but like I think it's on like the last beta. So there could be an issue there. I mean, we are setting this. Symbol editor does not exist on type. There could be an issue with like the specific version of affection that we have pulled in relative to these types. So I don't think I'm gonna bother getting into it. I kind of want to clean this up and like get this as a resource. And I think this is probably important. So getting this settled and figuring out this bit, which we can maybe do on stream next week. We'll probably want to push that a little bit. I suppose we can check this out and see if we can poke it a little bit, and then we'll maybe call it a day. Hey Joe, good to see you. All right. So first things first. This Vite cache bit, we need to, and I guess here I'm gonna boop, reset the timer on that sucker. With Vite, what we were running into last time was if we looked at the node modules, in theory, you can edit node modules and it will use that code. What Vite does though is a cache, and that cache assists in like loading and load times. So there's vite.devs deps, and then there's temp, which has nothing in it right now. So like if we looked at StarFX, it is basically dumping it all into one file, which helps with loading times because it doesn't need to load all of the modules and then parse them all. It sort of does some work up front. Then you can use it anywhere, and it is kind of like pre-compiled. But that doesn't work if we want to, like in theory, we could edit that one. We could edit in vite.vite/deps this file and it would work. So we could play around with and see if we can implement this in here. But this is, I mean, it's not bad. Like it's not minified, so we can actually read it, but also taking it from here and committing it to taking it from here and putting it in a place, like getting it in a place where we could commit it upstream is going to be more difficult because we now need to map this whole like smashed together file into potentially separate files when we open up a PR. So ideally, if we're going to be mucking around in our node modules, we would want to work in the actual module itself, which will be, depending on how they generate it or publish it, it will end up being more split up. So I happen to know that the way they're publishing it in StarFX means that all of these files are separate. So we can look specifically at this. It's pretty much directly out of and maps pretty closely to what's actually in the repo. And then we can also use patch package with this because patch package will see this file and apply it for everybody else. So we can both use patch package with this and then have it in a place where we can more easily like push it upstream. But to do that, we need to kill the cache. So I did look to make sure that we could do it. And I think what we want to do is this optimized deps. That doesn't, I want an example that has, it's fine. It's fine. So if we go into our config, Vite config, there is an optimized deps at the root of the defined config. So if we do this, we can do an exclude, and we should be able to do a StarFX. There might be some like sub-dependencies that we need to worry about. And we did get this note, re-optimizing dependencies because Vite config has changed. So that feels good. Is it still restarting? Yeah, so this is going to be the more complex bit here. Let's go ahead and just kill it and we'll restart it and see if that helps. I'm not sure how the server restart is handled. But this is the, since it's optimizing the deps, like we might run into this kind of stuff where it's optimizing some sub-dependencies also in that process, of which now we might run into this kind of stuff. Hoist non-React statics does not provide an export name default. Yep, so this is where it gets fun. In theory, it shouldn't be too bad, and I don't think this is something that you would end up having to do terribly often, but I think what we end up basically doing is this. So we are okay optimizing these, but StarFX we don't want to optimize. So if we say this as an include or an exclude, we also want to do an include so as to capture these. Now we can remove these bits, but we don't want to do the top level ones. I think this is the important bit that like you need to pay attention to this. So it's an ESM dep pointing to this one. So I think we need to pay attention to the syntax here. It doesn't actually say that this is appropriate syntax, but I'm going to assume that it is. So if we go like this, we want to do star effection only as far as the version that comes in through star effects. It's not throwing any errors. Oh, connected. Okay. And like part of this optimization is literally that it runs faster. Okay. Okay. That might have did it. So if we look in now star effects here, in theory, we should be able to do we don't want to look at source. I think it's loading from ESM. So let's go ahead and go into we tested this last time, but I can't remember. If we look in, I think it's query, thunk. Now, if we just put something up at the create, in a thunk create, we should, in theory, be able to refresh this and see it. We might need to restart because it might not do the hot reload and reload those bits. I'm not sure. It might be worth like looking at the optimized steps or something like that to see if it would, if that would work out. You can definitely see it goes a little bit slower. Okay, so it might not, it just might not actually be ESM. So if we go into this one, well, hold 1 second. If we go into ESM, we're calling create thunks. We might not have actually gotten to the point where this would be called. So let's just go up here and we'll go right under the store map in thunk create ESM. Save. Reload. Okay. We'll put it in both. And we'll say thunk.js. Nope. Okay, so we got a hi folks. So we should be able to see that if it is doing what we're expecting it to. We might need to, though, remove this. I'm going to go ahead and delete this. I'm going to restart. It might just, since it saw it in the .vite/deps already, it might be using that still. So if we turn off optimized depths just for that, we might need to like manually refresh that cache effectively. And I think honestly the docs might have said something about it, but okay. In thunk create ESM, sweet. So we are definitely in the ESM code path. So if we would go into, what is it, query thunk.js. Sweet. Now let's see if that hot reload changes, or if we see it in the hot reload. We refresh. Okay, so it's definitely not like hot reloading it. Anytime we change anything in here, we're gonna have to do that, which is not ideal, but come on. Now it's not logging it out at all. Is it still putting it in the, it's not still putting it in here, is it? So if we look into here, all right, well, we see the star effects. Okay. I don't see that. We did save, right? Save. Refresh. Interesting. Is it possible that it's saving it somewhere else? And oh, this is the other interesting bit here. Okay, so we've got affection is also being chunked. L2. So we got some polyfills. And affection. Okay, so they point to different. I don't know if I don't know if I'm keen on that. I mean, if this is what we need to do, but we were getting the log, so we are definitely able to update that. We did clear out the cache though, so it could very well have like put it in somewhere else. Optimize depths force. I mean, we're specifically excluding star effects. All right, let's delete this again. We'll close, stop, and we'll start it again. We'll see if we're getting this new console dialog. I presumed that this would actually work. Optimize depths. Include. So there's an include, there's an exclude. It'll crawl all of your files. Okay, so that's the like high level thing. We can just straight up disable it. Oh. Optimizing dependencies during build time was an experimental feature. Okay, so this is only a dev time thing. Okay. So we did get that. But if we change it. Hello. It definitely doesn't work here, which I'm not too surprised about, honestly. And if we do this, it's not going to get it to reload. So after we've done that, this is now, there's cached thing is coming into play here. If I have to stop and restart, that's still annoying. Yeah, it's, what is it doing? I mean, the caching is nice because it definitely does go faster. Like, it seems like it is noticeably faster. But okay, so there's an optimized section and there's a chunk section. So if we look at this, it is pointing to some. So those are also supposedly optimized. It doesn't actually list star effects anywhere though. And we've got a bunch of chunks. So who knows what the chunks are? Because none of these are actually pointing at a chunk. Like if I search for this, oh, wait. Yeah, it only shows up in those two spots. So star effects affection would be here. But why is it not? It's unclear to me where it is putting. Like, it's clearly not in here, right? This is very much not an E-star effects. If we and we can see here, there's a bunch of, oh, that's map. Internationalized. So like these are use sync external store. Like these are clearly chunked up pieces. Bunch from Tauri, bunch from React, Tauri, affection. This appears to be all affection. Scheduler. So that's all React. And then React Aria. Yeah, React Aria, React Spectrum. So it's definitely not pulling it in. So the question is, if it is importing from this folder down here, why is that not being run? I would be surprised if it's going down the route of the TypeScript types, because there's no actual exports that note that anywhere. We've got main and module defined here, and then we have exports here. So there is a import from ESM mod or script.mod. So if we're doing an import, I would expect it goes down ESM mod, which would mean that it's loading this, which should be all the things we care about. So I would think that this needs to be loaded every time. So why does it work when we delete the cache, but not when we refresh it? Unless there's some other cache somewhere else that is also sticking around. So if we have exclude star effects, I wish it didn't take this long. Honestly, like it taking this long almost wants me to just not work this way. But even if you do like a npm link or something like that, you're still going to run into this situation. Yeah, okay, so what is it using? It must be using some cache somewhere else. Preview, worker, server. So when we delete all the deps, it seems to go down ESM. If we look at script, that should still have hi folks. We're not getting that either. If we look in here, TypeScript is not saying anything. But if we did, is it really pulling TS? I think that would be the last question. If it's logging this, then that points to that being used, which feels, I mean, I guess. But I don't know why it's using the source directory and not the ESM as defined in the package JSON. It could explain why this is taking so long, though, to start up. If this deps.optimize is actually looking at external is also omitted. Use Vite's optimized deps exclude option. Yeah, it's not logging anything. So there's still something going on. I thought this would be the fix. I thought we'd be able to work on it this way if we deleted that and then define it in the exclude. But this might just not work at all. And if we're using Vite, we might be able to just, or we might not be able to use like the patch package workflow, which is kind of unfortunate because I do appreciate it. It is amazing how long this takes though. Okay. Hello. So it's using ESM. All I'm going to do is literally just stop it and start it again. So now it should be operating off of, and like there should be an existing cache. So I'd expect that it starts up faster because the .vite/deps exists. But it still should be considering this. But I'm not getting that log at all. So it comes from somewhere. Which is extremely confusing. Options to pass to ES build during the depth scanning and optimization. Certain options are omitted since changing them would not be compatible with Vite's depth optimization. So we can give it options. External is omitted. Use Vite's optimize depths.exclude option. So like, is that saying that if it's marked as external, then it will do its thing? Dependency pre-bundling. So it does some work. Yep, performance, definitely. That makes sense. Caching. It caches them there. The pre-bundling step will only need to run when one of the above is changed. Makes sense. I'm wondering, what if we do, rather than trying to do this exclude, let's just try doing the watch. I'm curious what that'll do. So if we do optimize depths, watch. ES build options. Is it expecting? It's expecting in type ES build options. That doesn't seem to link anywhere. Oh, here we go. Goes directly to ES build. That's not helpful. What if I just say watch? Refresh. I mean, it does seem to be struggling a little bit more. We're getting hello though. So if I go into here and say, well, it's not pulling TypeScript, it's pretty clear there. Hello from ESM after change. We're not going to question mark it. We're going to do this. So now if I do a refresh, okay, so it's definitely not like watching it. If I kill this and do that, so we've changed config. That might be enough to like bust that cache, which is part of the reason that this is we potentially then saw that update. It might actually be pulling though from a separate cache because we're still getting the hello. Yeah. So there's definitely something with it's build options, but we need to, it's omitting these. So you can specify build options, but you can't specify those. Okay. Whoa, not that. So if we do this, yeah, okay. So now, but we can't specify a watch, asset names, banner, drop. So I don't know, maybe we can figure out something in here, but this doesn't feel like the right way either. It feels like if we want to do something like that, it's like this route. In my little bit of Googling, it seemed to point to this being the case, and that's what people have done in the past, but that as a use case may have gone away because all the notes that I saw about it were like 2 or 3 years old. So it's possible that they've just backtracked on it a little bit there. It feels like this should work though. So it's only in development mode and it uses ESBuild to convert dependencies to ESM. Sure. So if a cache isn't found, it'll crawl. After the service is started, if a new dependency import is encountered, then it reruns. Okay. In a monorepo setup, a dependency may be a linked package from the same repo. And treats the link dep as source code. It will not attempt to bundle the linked dep and will analyze the link's dep's dependency list instead. Okay. So is this saying that we're explicitly, we're including a linked dependency? It will not attempt to bundle the linked dependency and will analyze the linked dependencies list instead. Yeah, like that's not what I want. Both include and exclude can be used. If dependency is large, okay, so if we don't optimize it, it's going to try to load it directly. Special files and dependencies are changing the build target. Okay. It feels like this is going to be the only way. I think we're going to have to do some more Googling on it. I'm not confident that this is even going to work though. Because there is likely some bundling that it needs to do. I thought it would work for StarFX because it is in ESM, or it's publishing in ESM, but clearly it's not going to work for everything. So we do need those bits because it does need to bundle those. But if we exclude star of X, I have no idea where it's loading it from. On the first load, it seems to work as I would expect. Afterwards, though, so like right now, it's generating these. If we look, see, it's nothing's in here yet. There we go. Now it's loaded. So if we go here, it has loaded. So hello from ESM after a change. If we go back and reload, it's still this. It's definitely not showing up in the list. Like I don't see star effects in the root anywhere, and it's not in the chunks that I've seen. But if we kill this, we don't get that log at all. So where is it loading it from? There must be some like, is it pulling it from like an NPM cache then or something? It might very well be pulling it from an NPM cache that on that second load because it's not showing up at all. So, well, I think we'll have to look at stuff that, I mean, this pretty much was what we wanted to like touch on as the last thing. We wanted to figure out if we could actually get it to work and work through node modules. And this, like that has been a workflow that I've used in the past. It doesn't appear to work terribly well with Vite. And that's the reason we did this. We were going to do this and just edit our node modules to get it to work, which in theory would work, but not with Vite. So there's some cache somewhere outside of like this one. I'm not sure. I'm not sure where it is pulling it from, because it seems to work as I would expect the first time, but once we restart the server, then it's gone. So I mean, I guess in theory I could just save the config file every time, but that's also not a great experience either. So yeah, I think that's kind of where we're at. It seems like the patch package would still work because it still has to generate this for the first time. So as long as this is empty, so if somebody installs, it would end up filling that. And I think that seems to be cleared often enough that it would not be an issue. So if we did patch package, we made changes, it would still, you know, like if somebody else pulled this down and ran an install, it would still work on their computer. But it's just like the feedback loop. The feedback loop is really nice that we could go into node modules, make some tweaks, reload, and be able to see stuff. But the fact that we don't get hot module reloading, we can't even reload the server. And when the server does reload, like we do Control C and then restart it, it's pulling from somewhere else. Who knows? And so like the only way I can see actually editing it is if we do this and we say after vite.config.js change. We save that. We save this. It restarts the server. We gotta wait for the whole thing to restart. At least it's not like super impressively slow. But it's not fast. It's definitely not as fast and nice as the module reloading. And it didn't even work that time. So, I mean, it's pulling from somewhere. It's pulling from somewhere, I don't know. So I think we crossed that one off. I'll see if I can do a little bit more research and see if we can get that working, because I want to be able to use it at some point in the future. But it's definitely not a today thing. We will check that one off. And I think that's what we're going to call it today. We got a WebSocket connection. It's coming through. We did basically raw WebSockets, and we went through the documents within the OBS WebSocket protocol documentation, and we did kind of a rough version of it. We can potentially then make this into a effection resource, which is in some, you could use it as a hook eventually, like within React, but doing it in effection is nice because that can help with handling all the messages and potentially pushing that context elsewhere, so we can use those WebSockets anywhere that we have StarFX set up. But there's going to be a little bit of cleanup, and I think I would like to try to get StarFX to handle resources. It feels like that's the best way to go. So next week, I'm kind of itching again to do another local first library. I don't have one off the top of my head though. There's a couple that I want to try, but they might be more involved and potentially include infrastructure, which I'm not terribly keen on. So I'll kind of poke around. We'll maybe do 1 or 2 more streams on like this to-do thing, and from there then potentially settle it out. But where we're going from here is probably doing some more local first stuff on that, and then I might end up pulling in another project or two. I kind of like doing the project focus. Let me know in the comments if this is something that ends up being useful, focusing on like a project or a specific thing for a little bit. Because picking a new topic every week is a lot. And actually getting something to 100% on stream would be nice for my free time, because I end up having to do that last 20% every week on every one of these projects, and that eats into my free time for doing other things. So have a great rest of your week. Happy Tuesday. Check out the schedule. I'll figure out what we do next week, and I'll plop it up there, and see you then. Bye.